Welcome to the Ex Terra Podcast. The Ex Terra mission is to explore and discuss the business of space and its effect on the national and global economy, as well as life on Earth. How does what happens in space affect your life every day? That's what we're exploring on the Ex Terra website, as well as on this podcast. My guest is Divya Panchanathan, Business Development Manager for Material Science Research and Manufacturing in Space for Axiom Space. Divya, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Tom, for having me. This is a great opportunity.
It's a great pleasure for us as well. Let's talk, first of all, just a little bit about your background. Tell us how you came to be where you are.
Absolutely. So I'm a little bit about myself. I'm a fluid mechanics / material scientist by background. I did my PhD from MIT in 2018, and I was mostly a scientist working in the lab, hands-on experiments, designing surfaces for repelling water, oil. So a lot of research work on the bench. And then after that, I worked in a filtration company called Donaldson Company for 2 years in an R&D role, and then joined Axiom Space over the last year. So I've been here about 10 months now, and I'm in the business development position here. And my role here is mainly to help our Axiom's customers to identify new opportunities in microgravity, especially in the area of material science.
So give me, if you could, a brief history of Axiom Space, because the company is not a newcomer to this field of microgravity research.
Yeah, so Axiom Space was founded by two visionary people. So, as you know, Michael Suffredini and Cam Gafarian, and this was way back in 2016. So Michael Suffredini has an extensive background in both building and operating space station, because he was the former manager of ISS. And Cam Gafarian, on the other hand, he had founded a company called SGT Technologies, which became one of the major contractors for NASA for providing human spaceflight training as well as other engineering services. So these two people came together, and there's no better combination that you can have, especially at that time, to have that vision to meet the unmet needs in the low Earth orbit. And there was the need to have a seamless transition as the ISS was coming to its end of life. And how do you transition that to commercial players as the low Earth orbit was opened to commercialization? So that's how this company was found. And we've been having a really good head start there. So it's been about 5 years. We've expanded a lot. We have about 300 plus employees right now, and already I've started building our first modules.
Has the goal of the company always been to establish a private space station, or was that something that evolved over time?
No, this has always been the case. So as I mentioned, these are the two people who came together to put together this vision, and they have always been about meeting the unmet needs in the low Earth orbit and using commercial services. So one of the things is we wanted to make space accessible to all types of people. So all types of governments, visionary governments, researchers, manufacturers, as well as individuals who want to use space for furthering economic development, as well as push the frontiers of human space exploration. So this was always been the objective, to be a commercial space station.
So describe for us the Axiom Station and how that's going to be assembled in conjunction with ISS.
Yeah, so the Axiom Station comprises of 4 modules. That's the current design. The first module will consist of crew quarters as well as some research space, and this is scheduled to launch in 2024. After that, we'll have the second module that goes up, which also will consist of crew quarters and some research space. That'll go up in 2025, and then We have the third one, which will be dedicated specifically towards research and manufacturing. And the last one would be the power and life support module. So the entire space station is scheduled to be built over the period of 4 years, from 2024 to 2028. And one thing to notice is that the main thing is we are going to be attaching ourselves to the ISS to begin with, and it's intended to give a seamless transition from a government-owned station to a commercial station. So some of the advantages of this is that it provides continuity for both NASA as well as any Axiom customers who are currently doing work on the ISS. So you can imagine that in the future, when we become a free flyer, all you have to do is transition all the equipment or whatever they're working on from the ISS over to the Axiom station through an hatch, and you don't have to decide how to bring it down, transport it back up. So it's very important to maintain that continuity to build that marketplace, a commercial marketplace in the low Earth orbit. The second advantage of this whole design is that we don't have to build all the modules together, especially the life support and the power module, from the very beginning to operate a space station. We can start operating immediately with using the resources of the ISS and get a head start into building the markets in low Earth orbit. And then when we have our power module, we'll be able to be a free flyer and be an independent space station.
Was this a clean sheet design, or was it technology licensed from NASA?
So Axiom Space is building this Axiom Station using all the lessons that has been learned from the building of the ISS and operating the ISS. So it's not like we are starting clean sheet in terms of knowledge. We have a lot of knowledge to leverage, but we also believe in innovation. That's one of our core values. And we are trying to see what are the things that we can do differently that can address some of the problems that ISS was facing previously. So for example, in terms of the research itself, right? There's a lot of work that scientists had to do to integrate their experiments to space, because they were very specific interfaces on the ISS. These are very old interfaces, and so you just have to spend more money and time for just modifying your equipment for space. Now we are working towards having very easy to use, potentially just plug-in interfaces that you can just send your instrument that you use in your lab right now and then just plug it into our space station, so you don't have to do too much modification. So that's one of the big innovation that we're trying to do. Another thing that we are also trying to do is making our station more human friendly, and both aesthetically and functionally. So if you've seen some of the pictures of the ISS, it's a lot of stuff, right, all around the station. So it's not pleasant for humans to be present there for long periods of time. So that's another thing that we are trying to innovate, using a design team that thinks about what is it like to live in such an environment for long term, and also have interfaces and facilities that are easy to use for humans in space, who are not also very well trained, right? So there might be short-term missions, there might be long-term missions. So there might be people who need to be able to operate these things without too much thinking or too much training. That's another. Yeah.
Is it the inflatable design like we saw from Bigelow, and I think the one that Sierra Space is planning, or is it a different construction method?
Right now, all the modules that we have planned, the 4 that I mentioned, they're all hard-walled modules. They're not inflatables. That being said, there is always our station is designed to be modular and has extra ports, and it can be always expanded with both inflatables as well as hard-walled modules.
And you're looking at being able to accommodate all manner of spacecraft, whether it be a Dragon or the Boeing spacecraft, the Starliner, maybe even a Russian spacecraft?
So right now, I don't have too much purview into this question, but I think there is we are definitely we are a commercial provider, and we need to be able to use like all types of launch services. So that's our goal, and so I think that this is how we are thinking as a company as well.
Now, Divya, you work in business development at Axiom Space. So how do you pitch companies, and how do companies pitch to you potential research, and what is your selection process?
So the main thing that I want to say here is that we as Axiom Space, we want to provide our services and our expertise to all types of customers, right? So we are not in the business of screening people who are coming to us. We are looking to expand the user base of the low Earth orbit, and that consists both of companies that have thought about space earlier or have worked in space earlier, and also of companies who have never ever thought of space before. So those are the kind of companies that I work with. A lot of different material science, chemical engineering companies on Earth who are only used to operating on Earth, and they don't know what it takes to go to space. So there is a lot of work that is involved. As a business development manager, it's not my job to screen them, but it's about to help them see the vision for their company in space and how they can be a successful business in space as well. So it's identifying those opportunities and helping them lay that path towards that. So that's the kind of role that we play, and we offer all types of services for that. And it's also important that we are able to build this sustainable ecosystem in the low Earth orbit, or a marketplace in the low Earth orbit. And so it's important for our customers to be successful, for us to be successful. So that's our key policy or motto, I would say.
What are the benefits of conducting research in microgravity?
Okay, so there are a number of benefits of microgravity. So let me first say that a big picture view is that microgravity, we believe that microgravity can be used as an innovation platform by researchers and companies to achieve their goals on Earth. So it's not just like a one-time thing that you want to do, but it's an environment, entirely new environment that you have now access to, and a tool that you have access to that you can use to innovate. So with that, I'll maybe get into a little bit more about the scientific benefits that you see in microgravity. So a lot of the benefits in microgravity arise from fluid mechanics principles. So on Earth, you have due to gravity, you have sedimentation. So if you have particles in a liquid, you will have particles fall through, or if you have bubbles, the bubbles would rise, right? You have that issue. And then you also have a convection. So when you're boiling a pot of water, you see the bubbles like rolling around, right? So that's due to convection. Now, this won't happen in microgravity. And where this benefits is, for example, in materials processes where you need a very quiescent environment for growing material, for example. And this is usually seen in crystal growth, where you need to align atoms or molecules in a very specific way or over long periods of that crystal lattice. And so if you have any defects, that can affect the performance of the crystal. And what type of crystals? It can range from proteins all the way to large crystals like semiconductor crystals or metal alloys. So you have a wide range of crystals that can be affected by this. The other interesting advantage of microgravity is containerless processing. So this is something that you cannot do on Earth at all. So one of the, imagine like a blob of liquid that you can process without using a container. And that can have effects where you don't have any defects from the container that can affect the material, as well as you have reduced shear forces as well. And the last thing is I described more on the material science, but there's a lot of benefits on the life science as well, which is as you know, cells have evolved to be to grow under gravity conditions. And so when you take them to microgravity, they see a different environment. They react differently and they adapt differently, and that can be used for beneficial cases like curing aging diseases, synthetic biology, as well as there is also the case for tissue engineering, for example. Yeah. So those are some of the microgravity advantages I would like to highlight.
I'm talking with Divya Panchanathan, Business Development Manager for Material Science Research and Manufacturing in Space for Axiom Space. Take a moment right now to click on subscribe to be sure you don't miss any of the podcasts, or if you're watching on YouTube, any of the videos from Ex Terra, the Journal of Space Commerce. Divya, I'd like to turn a little bit now to talk about the AX-1 mission that's coming up. What's the significance of that mission?
Absolutely. And this is the one of the biggest milestones for Axiom Space, and I'm very happy to address that. So the significance of this AX-1 mission is that, first of all, it's going to be the first fully private mission to the international to space. So when I mean fully private, I mean there have been some previous private individuals who've gone to space, but they've always gone with professional astronauts from different governments. This is going to be a flight which is only consisting of private individuals. And these are pioneers who are traveling to space and are going to be opening up opportunities for further private space flight. And the other two significance is that Axiom calls these missions as precursor missions. And when we say precursor missions, we mean precursor to the establishment of the Axiom Station and its services. So these type of missions help us to, for example, establish procedures and operations before our station comes up. So we have a smooth transition for that. And the other thing is that it's serving the demand for going to space right now. So we are definitely leveraging that and helping build that, starting to build the marketplace for the low Earth orbit.
How was the crew selected?
The crew. So Axiom, as I mentioned, has its goal is to support all types of customers. Okay. So we are not like our goal is not to screen customers. But that being said, this crew consists of mainly paying customers. And we are a commercial space company, and we are serving the demand that exists right now, as I mentioned. But that being said, that I also want to say that it's not that you can just buy this experience, just like the experience of climbing Mount Everest, for example, you need to be able to earn that experience as well. And when I say earn, I mean you need to go through certain training requirements, which spans across multiple months, and the customers have to be able to commit to that type of training. And they also have to meet certain physical tests that will make sure that this flight is safe for them. In terms of tests, I should say that there is also, it's not like as rigorous as, the selection is not as rigorous as probably other professional astronauts, because some of these missions are short-term missions. And so you can have a little bit more leeway compared to the usual screening procedures there.
So what kind of training have they been getting?
Yeah, so the training is really multifaceted, because this is something that we are trying for the first time. And as I said, there's not going to be a professional astronaut with them. And so this is something that we have to train them. Like there are three types of training that I can mention right away. So first is, for example, the systems level training. So systems level training, as in they have to be aware of what is the ISS, how is it built, what are the interfaces there, how do they operate the systems there. There is also the operation of the launch vehicle that they would be traveling in. And then finally, the operation of the research payloads that they would be conducting research with. So that's the systems level training, right? And then you have the fact that there are 4 different people who are traveling, who are coming together and traveling to space. So how do you do team building and make sure that the team is cohesive? So there is this training that they did called the National Outdoor Leadership School, where they were taken to Alaska, and then they were dropped in a mountainous location there and asked to find a way to another destination as a team. So they had to come and work together to solve challenges, and it's important for them to understand and leverage each other's strengths. And it's just to simulate the environment in space where you are kind of almost alone. I mean, of course, we would have ground people helping them, but they still have to figure out their way. So that's one interesting training that they had to go through. And the last type of training that I want to mention is physical training, of course. So they did microgravity flights. So they did weightlessness training using parabolic flights, and also the centrifuge training for withstanding the G forces that they would be experiencing when they go to space.
I hope they did that Alaska expedition in the summertime and not the wintertime.
I think that was one of the first ones that they did with
So talk about the research they'll be conducting.
Awesome. So as you might have seen in the recent announcement from Axiom Space, they are carrying a robust portfolio of research, microgravity research and other research with them for doing on the space station. And that too within such a short time of 10 days, right? Which includes the travel as well. So there are approximately 25 experiments, and they have committed a combined total of 100 hours of human-intended research to be conducted. And some of the things, some highlights are, for example, Larry Connor, who's one of the private astronauts. He is going to be conducting some research on behalf of the Mayo Clinic that is going to be studying impact of microgravity on senescent cells and on heart health. Sorry. So what are senescent cells? So these are cells that are that even we have in our body, and they increase as you age. And these cells stop dividing, and they cause problems by not allowing your body to respond to diseases in the normal way. So studying them in microgravity can solve some of the aging related problems that we have back on Earth. So this is an example where you're using space to solve problems back on Earth. And then the other type of research that he's doing is also human research, which is volunteering himself to be studied before and after flight. So there would be some high resolution MRIs that would be conducted on him to understand the effect of space on spinal and brain tissue. And the other astronauts, for example, Mark Patty, he's planning to lead some Earth observation activities that will help with solving some challenges in the climate change, urbanization, and human habitation in North America. And the other, on the side of human research, sorry, not human research, sorry, he's also doing like an interesting tech demo of two-way holoportation. And what this means is that you imagine a hologram that you're able to communicate both ways. Mm-hmm. And this is important because you can imagine that in space you do get very lonely over time, and so it is this type of technology can really help progress human space flight further. So this is really important as well. And lastly, Aton will be has dedicated his time towards the Ramon Foundation in Israel, and they are doing a number of experiments that span across astrophysics, optics, ophthalmology, neurology, and these scientific experiments would ultimately help in solving challenges back on Earth as well.
So a lot of good research to be done, and yet there are some probably who would say, well, they paid for the privilege, it's space tourism. Do you see the X-1 mission as space tourism? And if not, what sets that apart?
No, absolutely not. This is not space tourism. And the reason why is because, as I described, each one of these astronauts are carrying a robust portfolio of research with them, and meaningful research that is going to like push frontiers of space flight in future. So both in terms of understanding how microgravity is going to potentially benefit both industry as well as academic work, and the second aspect is human research aspect. So they themselves have volunteered to be part of a number of tests which can help in further understanding of the effect of space flight on human beings. And you can imagine this is important for right now, because most of the people who have gone to space before are really fit people who have gone through a lot of training before. And this is the almost opposite of that, right? So to understand the effects of microgravity on a common citizen that is traveling to space, this is one of the first in that. So all of this put together, it's not, in our opinion, this is not just tourism. This is much more than that.
Finally, Divya, I want you to look into your crystal ball and tell me what you see in the commercial space industry in the next 10 to 15 years.
Absolutely. This is the most exciting part of working for Axiom Space, and the most exciting part of my role too, right? So it's about predicting that future. So the first thing that I want to highlight is that there is definitely going to be an increase in the population of humans in the low Earth orbit. It's going to be steady. It's not probably going to be like huge numbers in the 10 to 15 years, but what I want to highlight is what it's going to be very interesting to see the variety of people that go to space, right? It's not going to be the same type of people, different backgrounds, different countries, different ages. All of these you're going to see, there are going to be a lot of firsts in space. That's something that I thought is interesting. Then the second aspect is, while Axiom Space is the first in the game for building commercial space station, but then it's not going to be the only player for sure, and that's evidenced by a lot of announcements that you've seen in the last few months, and that's really good because there is that need, and it is important to build that ecosystem, and not going to be able to do it alone. Everybody has to come together to do that, and that's already starting to happen. And you can also imagine that right now I described 4 modules, but I expect that there will be more modules added to our station that are specific towards specific markets, like, for example, hotels or manufacturing a certain product in space, or for communications, transportation. So there might be a lot of specific modules that we build, and basically it's going to be a city in space, right? That's our grand vision. And anything that a city needs, you need to build that. So that's one of the things in low Earth orbit. Going beyond the low Earth orbit, we believe there may be there'll be some commercial activity between the moon and the Earth, and potentially on the moon too, because we're already starting to see companies coming in that area. Mm-hmm. And if we are really, really very good and successful, then we could probably see private missions to Mars. But that's really stretching the limit for 10 to 15 years. That's the main vision we see for the next next decade. And one thing that I want to highlight here is we are yet to realize the full potential of space, especially because not many people on Earth have thought about it as a way to solve challenges that they face on Earth. Usually, when we say space, people think about it as an exotic destination, and we have to solve challenges to reach that destination. But it's not the case anymore. I believe that the low Earth orbit is almost like an extension of the Earth now. You can imagine like an equivalent of a new continent that has been discovered, 500 years ago. And what that led to over that 500 years, right? So it's similar to that. Like, it's an extension of the Earth, which people can now use for innovation, and that's going to push our frontiers into space exploration as well.
Well, Divya, we've been hearing a lot about this X1 mission and Axiom Space, so it's really great to get some insight from inside the company. Thank you so much for taking some time to talk with us today.
Thank you, Tom, for having me, and it's been a great pleasure to be here.
I've been talking with Divya Panchanathan, Business Development Manager for Material Science Research and Manufacturing in Space for Axiom Space. A programming note, this will be our final podcast for 2021. We hope you'll all enjoy the holiday season, and we'll be back on January 6th to talk with Nino Marcantonio, founder and deputy director of the Defense Technology Innovation Program. That is going to do it for this edition of the Ex Terra Podcast. You can subscribe to the audio version of the podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many other popular podcasting platforms. Be sure to click on subscribe to be sure you don't miss an episode of the podcast or any of our other videos. You can also get daily news at xterrajsc.com. And one thing more, be sure to connect with us on LinkedIn and follow us on Twitter at xterrajsc. Until next time, I'm Tom Patton. Thanks for joining us.